What's up, buddy?
How you doing, man?
Yeah, low key speedballing all day.
I like that with the big ass fucking mug of Joe.
The Guinness espresso.
That's what you're into?
Yeah. Well, I just like I'm kind of fasting right now.
Oh,
During
really?
yeah, I fast except my 6 hour windows between like 3 and 9,
Okay.
and yeah, just black coffee otherwise.
So
Up
you've
until recently, I was kind of like a kid's coffee kind of guy.
a
Like
kid's coffee. What do you mean by that?
like cream and sugar.
Oh, okay. Now you drink it black?
Yeah.
Oh, that's tight. See, that's interesting. I feel like there's always a conversation within poker about what drugs are good for you, what drugs are bad for you. What do you think in terms of like? Do you think caffeine is probably just it? Like, just stick to that.
Honestly, like optimal, probably, yeah. Caffeine at most. Like I don't know if I could survive without that cup of coffee in the morning. But I do think I think if you're actually trying to be objective about like certain drugs, like some drugs definitely don't go, like alcohol, like hell no, right? But like when it comes to like weed, for instance, I think it can help you slow down. It can make you a little bit more creative. It can kind of help you manage tilt a bit more. Because see, I still don't think it's best, but it's a trade-off. Because I think that you're probably sharper, faster when you're not smoking weed. But I do think that there probably are some benefits to some substances. But straight up, the majority of the success in my life has happened when I've been completely sober.
Really?
Coffee, just that. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've had some struggles, man.
And which I find very fascinating, just because when I think about poker, I think of, it basically being a game that is best suited to people who have an extreme amount of, emotional control, like people who could just, lose $20,000 and not feel upset about it. So when I found out that you being like one of the most rational, thought out poker streamers that I watch, I was very, very shocked when I found out that that was something that you had dealt with in the past, just because it feels like it would be very tough to manage being a top-notch poker player with dealing with like any kind of addiction. And in particular, I feel like I don't think you were super clear about it, but I think it was basically pills or opiates, right?
That's what got me in treatment last time. But I've always said that my drug of choice is more, and so pretty much like when I'm usually it would start with alcohol for me, and then I really wouldn't know what would happen like after that, right? The last time I went to treatment though was because I couldn't quit opiates, man. I just couldn't. And they shit. So I'm just gonna turn off my phone real quick.
Cool.
But yeah. Sorry, I was just in this moment where I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not in that spot anymore. Like shit.
I'm glad you're not either, man. It's like
Yeah.
I really respect where you're at, but also I can't lie that I have a real fascination in how you got to the place that you're in today and how many times you sort of oscillated back and forth between both of those modes.
Yeah. So there's actually been like 3 different periods in my life where I was clean. Actually, I don't use that anymore. A couple of people told me that they don't that bothers them. I was sober, and like I build shit, and then I start getting loaded again, and just burn it all to the ground real fast. And like that's kind of my story is just building things and then burning it to the ground, having my back up against the wall, and then rebuilding.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was like you could even like chart my life, like so much success when I was sober, not and I was focused, and I was trying to focus on just being a better person, things like that. And then just the exact opposite, you know, like the one that the interview that like the final one was when I was in Cabo. and I was in a house with like Steven Chidwick, Elio Fox, a few other guys, and I was playing high stakes heads up sit and goes up for like 60 hours. Yeah.
Why? The games were just that good and you just couldn't turn
No,
it down?
I lost my mind, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like so when I was out there, you can go into the pharmacies, right? And it was right after Black Friday, so I was like just not in a good place. I had started drinking again, and then I walked into the pharmacy, and it was like a kid in a candy shop. You know, you can get anything you want there, just and so I was like, I want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit, and like anyway. I was playing heads up PLO and stuff. Like, like I'm not even a PLO player. I dropped like 100-something thousand. My friends took my computer from me, and they were like, all right. I was pissed. I was like, give me my computer back, and they were like, well, I'll give it back to you if you can tell me what day it is. And I got the month wrong. I think it was like, yeah, yeah. So like that's the kind of crazy that I get, right? And it's so weird that that's me because that's not me at all now, right? But
Right.
that shit happened.
Do you feel like you know enough about yourself to avoid that pattern playing out in your life again, or do you? I mean, obviously, you still deal with the reality that that could happen to you, but do you feel like you have like an understanding, or are you treating yourself with enough kindness and whatnot at this point that you think that you could avoid ending up in that same position? Do you have enough of a support network around you? I feel like Jordan Drummond is not going to let you fuck up too bad.
No, like I think it was right after Black Friday. I felt really groundless. I didn't have that much money. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. There were just a lot of things that were not working for me. So when I went to treatment, actually, 8 years ago, I knew that I needed to have stability, and so I set up community. I actually started working at my treatment center for free for about a year, and for about 5 years, I just put working on like recovering first, so that shit never happened again, man. Because there have been like 4 or 5 separate instances where I had punted between 100 and 150,000 of my own dollars, just totally going crazy. And like, I'm like one of the most, I think I might, yeah, I'm like top 5 most winning MTT players of all time. And I'm not a millionaire because I've actually just like been such a dumbass with money. And so this time in treatment, I was like, all right, you just got to work on yourself first, and the money will come. Because I actually owed people money when I was in treatment. I was in a dark hole, man. So it's nice that I'm not in that whatsoever now, And I think that's because I worked on myself, and I also worked on treating what I do as a professional and with a seriousness.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, poker is not what I would imagine would be the best way to make a living for somebody who is in any way concerned about their mental health. Like it's the kind of game where if you don't like having a strong mind is just such a huge benefit to it. Guys like you, Ben CB, who I watch, and when I can watch a terrible, terrible situation play out, and you can kind of tell who the best players are because they usually seem to like take it on the chin the fastest and move on emotionally the fastest. And that's got to be tough when, you want to be gentle with your mental state, especially when you're in recovery, and then you're playing this game where you could play perfectly, you could do great things. Like this seems very opposite to the mentality that you want to have as an addict, where you want to very much like do the right things in your life and then presumably like slowly affirm this belief in your brain that, okay, if I do the right things, then things are going to get better. Poker is very much sort of strays from that given the variance and whatnot, right?
Yeah, I want to make this super clear because there is this whole thing about me being an addict and coming back to win millions. I won millions in spite of being an addict, man. Like it's not a good game for addicts. Like, I mean, like if you have problems with addiction and drugs, Poker's not your fucking salvation. I'm sorry, because people have come to me and been like, I'm just like you, man. I party really hard. Teach me poker. I'm like, okay, dude. The thing is, there is like it is dangerous for addicts, right? I found poker because I had gone to treatment the first time when I was 20, and I went to a Texas Tech, and they had a program for kids in recovery, and it was like 50, 60 kids in addiction or who were all clean together, just like hanging out. And what we did actually was like played poker on the weekends because it was kind of the next best thing, I guess. Probably not the best idea, but we were kids. And I sucked actually at playing. Anyway, I'm going to go back though. I was talking about the recovery mindset and the poker mindset and how those two things work with each other. They're actually very congruent in that you learn in recovery to focus on what you can control, do your best, and then the results you let go of, right? Like in recovery, through recovery, I found mindfulness and meditation in Buddhism. And that's a lot about equanimity, right? And that's about essentially keeping your calm. There's always this sort of calm place within you, no matter what. There's this other teaching that I found super, super helpful. Am I rambling a lot?
No. That's what I every podcast I do is, we ramble. We just talk about whatever. So feel free to go on any kind of tangent you want.
Yeah, but there's this Buddhist idea, right, called the two arrows, where like you're gonna get this bad beat and that shit's gonna hurt no matter what, right? And you're gonna be like it's gonna sting, whatever. But then there's this other shit, like this talk around it, like, oh man, I'm so fucking unlucky, blah 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 blah. And then that shit starts to hurt even more, right? And you're actually adding to your own pain, right? So what I can kind of control is the self-talk, right? So I try to just be like, think about shit I'm grateful for when something bad happens, or just definitely don't start down that cycle, right? Because there's so much more bullshit with that, like the second arrow, which is your own negative self-talk, right? That makes sense?
No, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about when I'm watching you on stream is that you will, take a bad beat or make a bad play or do something that like you seem very, very conscious of your own mental state. You'll say, I think that right now I'm feeling a little bit like this and I don't like it. I'm kind of trying to reorient myself back to where I want to be at in order to play my best. And the fact that you verbalize that is pretty cool, especially when again, like BBZ, he seems like the perfectly suited poker player because he's like a real robot mentally.
That's the word I was gonna say.
I really don't see him stray from that a lot, so it can be kind of hard to like view him as like a human as a poker player, whereas you are extremely human all the time.
I think though that may actually give me like a little bit of an edge because I'm aware that I'm against a human too. That's a human being with two cards, and they're like trying to get me to do something.
Right. And
whatever that thing is that you're trying to get me to do, I'm trying to figure out not to do. You know what I mean? So, like with poker, like there's all this theory that you can go super deep into, and I'm about that. But at the same time, I'm also super conscious that I'm against a human being, and I'm not going to play like Pio Solver against Joe Blow 69 or whatever, like I'm just not. So that may give me this other edge, but I could be making some shit up, right? I could be talking out my ass here, but I do think that there is something there.
Definitely. Okay, so how deep into your poker journey were you before Black Friday, and how much money do you lose on Black Friday?
I was actually doing okay because so there were like 3 separate periods, right, where these down periods came and these up periods came. one of my up periods was during like 2009. I had just come back. I was living in a house with G Boro. You ever heard of him?
I don't think so.
I thought you used to grind back in the day, man.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back on it now, I'm like, man, I was clueless. But probably also because I stopped paying attention to poker for like 10 years. So I
Yeah,
feel like
he was like the biggest winner on both Stars and Full Tilt.
What was
in
his
like
name again?
2008, 2009. G Boro,
Oh, okay. It does sound
GBRO.
familiar, but dude, I wish I had been like. When I look back at those days of me playing poker, I just have so many regrets. I feel like I'm kind of like trying to make up for it now because I wish that I had just like figured out the game or like figured out how to how to take poker seriously back then so much because there was just so much shit that I feel like I missed out on.
Yeah, but you know what? Like every single moment that you think about that, you're wasting space where you could be thinking about getting better, right? And
Yeah.
like, I mean, I'm not trying to be like too condescending there, but I know, like for instance, that thought helps me with bad beats. I'm like, okay, I can think about this bad beat right now, or I can try to like zoom into this table and try to like make sure I don't make any more mistakes, or that I can like keep taking money off the table in the future. You know what I mean? But like,
Oh, okay, sorry.
yeah, like well, anyway, I was that year 2009. I went to Vegas, lived with G Boro. I was losing because I was trying to get Supernova Elite on PokerStars, and I was like 700K through. You get Supernova Elite if you get 1,000,000 of these points. I was playing 16 tables of sit and goes at a time on a downswing, just getting my ass kicked. And I went to Vegas to Steve's place, and he's the biggest winner online, right? And he's sitting there on the couch with his dirty ass laptop in his lap, smoking a bong, like just like four tabling. And I'm like, this is where the fucking magic happens. Like this is where. But what I saw was that he was super, super slow, and he thought about everything. And he would like write shit down and be like, you know, and like never really take, like, was super even. And I'm over here 16, 20 tabling and shit's like beep, 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 beep. And he's like, bro, can you please turn that shit down? You know? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try what you're doing. I'm gonna try to just slow down and play big buy-ins and I started having fun again because I was trying things. I was looking, you know, and like thinking about spots more and not playing all automatic. And within like playing that slow, like playing a more focused style, along with during that time period, I also worked out a lot. I went on this huge upswing and also like lost a ton of weight too. I usually tell that story as like I looked in the mirror when I came back from Vegas and I was like fat and broke, and I was like, fuck, man, one or the other, you know? But you can't be both. Can't be both.
I mean, I feel like you and I might have this in common where my body fat percentage is usually pretty reflective of my happiness in the sense that if I'm in really good shape, it's a pretty good chance that I'm in a good place mentally. Although it's not 100% because like right now, like, okay, pre-COVID, I was like 210. I got down to like 210, which was my best weight that I'd ever been at. I was eating super fucking healthy. I was working out every day, sleeping 8 hours plus a night. And then COVID hits. Now I'm like closer to 240 and I don't feel too good about it. But I also feel like my life is probably at a better place right now in terms of everything else. So it's not a one-to-one type thing, but I feel like generally when I look back at photos of myself and I see myself really heavy, I can usually identify what I was dealing with at the time. That was the reason for me overeating.
Yeah, I think that for me is, I think the most similar for me is that like I almost view it as like I'm kind of addictive in some way. Like I try to hide from whatever stress I am by feeling good about something, like, or just, you know, so it's either food, drugs, sex, whatever, you know, like it's things that like really pleasurable shit. Like I have an interesting relationship with them, right? And so I have to watch those things and really be careful. So for right now, like I think fasting's been helping, but if I were being honest, like so the majority of my poker, like my adult life, I've been sober, but during COVID, I got kind of down for a bit. I wasn't making that much money, and more was going out than was coming in. I was eating like shit.
The thing that makes poker so incredible is that you could sit at your computer, the online poker variant at least. You can sit at your computer and you can make ungodly amounts of money from just being really good at a game. But then the bad side of it is that you're sitting at a computer all day, and you're kind of missing out on a lot of the things that are good about life as well, in terms of going out and having a lot of human connection and everything. So when I see you and the way that you've kind of like really really embraced the community and the Twitch side of things, I feel like that's been pretty interesting for me to watch, because I feel like it really adds something to the lifestyle of a poker player that wouldn't exist otherwise. I'm sure that when you're talking about losing $100,000 plus during these sort of depressive states, I bet you wouldn't be able to get on Twitch like that without everybody sort of like realizing at a certain point, like the whole, like, I mean, maybe you could still play good and keep up appearances, but I feel like there's a choice to play poker almost as a manifestation of your depression, if that's where you are mentally, to like play bad and not overanalyze hands and stuff like that. How has that community side of things sort of changed your lifestyle?
Couple things, like part of why I started doing stuff like community service, wherever, is like I just didn't want to be like a dirtbag. And like I kind of figured that like poker takes, you just there's no way around it. Now it is kind of like pure capitalism in a way, but like you're basically taking money off of people. It is a strategy game. There is consent there, whatever, but it is what it is. So now that I have this community and like I'm just trying to put out a positive message, make it a space that everyone can come, like that gives me meaning. And like it feels like really good people have been drawn into my life, and that's also badass, And I got to remember that too, though. There's the other side. I want to ask you, like, bro, you're like way more famous than me. Like, people probably come up to you all the time and shit. How do you deal with that? Because I'm like nervous about being live, right? Because like I'm an extrovert, but I'm also kind of like a little bit to myself,
Yeah, I mean, it is weird. Like, I feel like COVID was amazing for my understanding of my own fame, because for years I was like posted up at the bike shop every day. That's where I went every day, and that's where we did the content as well. So an average day for me would just be being around shitloads of people that knew me from the internet, and I would just kind of constantly find myself like, overwhelmed, at times annoyed, just completely lost appreciation for what I was all of a sudden experiencing, because it was just way too much. I didn't feel like I was like in control of, and I mean, I had so many crazy incidents of people just, rappers just storming in the back of the office while I was trying to do interviews, and just basically like massively overstepping on whatever boundaries I had clearly kind of laid out.
Yeah.
So honestly, like the last year or so of just sort of being, very much isolated for a large percentage of it, I feel like that kind of allowed me to, in a lot of ways, start to feel like more of a human connection with people I meet and stuff. And, like, I mean, to be honest, it kind of does happen constantly at this point. Like, I mean, the Uber Eats driver yesterday was, freaking out, and it doesn't occupy my brain for more than like 2-3 seconds after it happens. I just kind of like immediately move on. But it's something that you got to get used to, and some people are really, really good naturally at it, and some people just aren't, and you kind of learn over time. Like, I've heard YouTubers. I had to hear other bigger YouTubers talk about this before I realized that it was true for me too. But I don't think that like doing meet and greets is good for me as a person. Like, I think that there's, because if I'm going to meet 200 people in a line, it's like, and take a picture with all of them and have that really close, like a lot of times they're telling you your content saved my life, or, I watch your shit every day, or
Yeah.
like these really intense personal things. And if you're like a real human being, that's going to mean a lot to you. But when you do it over and over and over, it feels like it's kind of like fucking with your energy as a person, and it can be really hard to kind of deal with that. Like meeting one fan is amazing. Meeting 200 fans in a row is a very different experience, and I feel like for a lot of people it's really draining, and it's like out of respect for like your own mental health. I think a lot of people end up kind of wanting to avoid that, which was a weird realization for me, is that I just needed to make myself less available because it wasn't ultimately good for my own relationship with these people that I literally owe my whole life to. My whole brand, my whole success, my house, etc. It's all because of my fans.
Yeah.
But it's a weird realization that like it's probably not good for my relationship with the people who support me to be like constantly meeting them and constantly sort of having these very, very surface level interactions,
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like, that for the most part, I don't view people as like fans, because like we're all humans, right? And so like if I meet somebody in person, I'm gonna try to give them respect. But then there's this other thing that I do kind of stress about, which is that like I don't know, like I feel like maybe I need to put on some kind of performance or something. Like I gotta be like extra nice, and I think that what I'm gonna have to do is just realize that I don't gotta do that. I just have to be me. I don't have to do anything super special. And I don't know though. Like in 2006, even going to the Bahamas, I didn't like how much I ran into people. It wasn't even about not wanting to be social. It was about not wanting to be social when I'm in my bathrobe going to the store to get some toothpaste. You know what I mean?
Because it's two very, very different mental states when you're expecting to be around people and when you're not. And when I run to the store to like grab a fucking snack or a pack of backwoods in the middle of the night and I'm in my flip-flops and my gym shorts, and then I see somebody and they start freaking out, like super excited to meet me. I mean, that was a very strange thing to get used to at first, but and that also honestly is a big thing that makes me like not want to go do social things, like going to Coachella and shit like that. Is like at a certain point I kind of don't feel like I get to enjoy it like a normal person, and that makes me just not even want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, and like I think that you may or may not want to put that out there, just because like people who don't experience it don't understand. They're like, oh, poor you, little famous boy.
I read those comments a million times to the point where I'm just kind of like honest about it.
Yeah,
like I know that, and that is the problem, is that once you get to a certain point in your career, all your problems are not relatable to your audience at a certain point.
Yeah, because they don't have anything to like really compare it to. And what's weird is that like I want to preface anything I say with the fact that like, yo, I'm stoked to be in the position that I'm in. I'm grateful. Like, especially when I was like, a complete fuck up when I was like 18 and 19, like, not thinking I had much future. Where I am right now, man, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. But like, there's also just how to manage like new situations, how to deal with emotions that come up, and I think that like even with things going really well, the better they go, the farther you can fall. Right. So for me, when everyone's like, oh man, Ape's like he's really good at poker, he's crushing all these tournaments, blah 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 blah. Like, I'm like, it feels good, but then like, when you make a mistake and you got people booing and people like that feels worse too. You know what I mean? Everything on the bigger stage definitely feels different, and it's unusual, but so far it's been pretty fun. Like for the most part.
Yeah, it feels like you're fostering a pretty because like your community is kind of always going to be based on what you're putting out there. And I feel like that's one thing I like about you and I like about BBZ is that, I mean, neither of you are really like the dudes on Twitter arguing with people or getting into shit. Like I've actually seen it stressing Jordan the fuck out when he's in like relatively minor skirmishes with other players on Twitter or whatever. And he's kind of even like asked me for advice, and I've almost kind of been like, wow, like, bro, like this is nothing. Like you're good. You're super good. You know.
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit of smack about Jordan right now because the reason, like, but I'm going to preface that's with some shit too.
The more we
The
talk
reason,
about him, the more he's likely to watch this whole thing because he'll feel like he has to. So that's good.
yeah. Well, like, like, first of all, like, I'm glad that that dude's at the helm. Like, he's someone that I respect, and like, I like the way he thinks and goes about things, and I'm glad that he's on top of the money. You know, we were talking about how he's just like super optimal. But like he's a robot in a way, but he's also he won't cross certain lines, and he's like he's all about just like eye on the prize, but also not being ethical, being straight up about stuff, and I like that about him. But yeah, you're right, man. We try to avoid that stuff in general. I just like one time I have like I used to have beefs with people sometimes or have heads up stuff when I was younger in the game, and I think heads-up battles and beefs are fun to watch and good for the game overall. But usually, if you start throwing negative shit out there, it'll come back. And what I'm trying to do is build my brand, my products, BBZ, based on like the merit of it, and not have to be like throwing shit at other people's business. Why I got to be like that? I don't want to take anybody down.
Hey, question is, do you feel like you're an MTT player right now just because that's the most popular thing? Like, is the sit and go scene dead? Could you see yourself becoming a cash player like BBZ has been kind of doing? Like, what's your thoughts on like formats? Like, is there not really a SNG scene these days for those who are super clueless? Basically talking about single table tournaments.
Okay, so there's a few different kinds of tournaments, right? We got the cash games, which is like you literally sit down with cash and you play what we call deep stacks, a lot of big blinds. We got sit and goes, which are single table tournaments. And you got multi-table tournaments, which is what I'm good at. From the beginning, I played sit and goes, and I met this guy, Chase, who's kind of like your Jordan, who taught me early how to treat the game like a business. He had spreadsheets. He had ICM in like 2006. Anyway, he also showed me all the forums, things like that. Back to the he was doing sit and goes, and I don't know, they bored me, and so I'm a fish, so like I like that big score at the top, and so I was always kind of going for that, going broke a lot. But in the beginning of the sit and goes, they are tough. I think I got sick of them. I told you the story about like when I quit them. Actually, it's just like was then. Now I play them if they're soft, and I know a lot more about different formats now that we have solvers. Yeah, I've been exploring cash games because I can really like check my work later on with solvers, and I'm working with our cash game coach in the seminars way. But yeah, MTTs. I originally stuck with them because they're exciting, and also because now they're just insulated from the usual things that are hurting online poker. Solvers. Yeah, you can solve for different stack depths, but it's hard to solve for different stack depths. There's independent chip model considerations, money bubble. It's so complex that you can't ever, like a computer program could win in tournaments, but couldn't completely solve it, at least not yet.
And then the bounties add another layer to it, right?
Yeah, that's why MTTs are like still insulated from that. And then secondly, I think they'll always attract the recreational because that idea, same with me, like turning $10 into 10,000 sounds pretty sweet. You know what I mean? So that big payoff, I think, will always have recreationals in it. So they're just known for being softer.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, especially because like recently I've made a little bit more of an effort to really start learning cash games. And when I was going through hands with Landon, I just started to realize like, holy fuck, like this shit is so much tighter than I ever could have guessed. Like I'm calling 3 bets like I'm playing MTTs, because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, well, we're 200 big blinds deep. Of course, I gotta call this 3-bet with fucking queen 10 suited or whatever, and Landon's just hitting me with the knowledge of like, bro, like this shit is really, really different. Like you've got to fold a shitload more than you do in MTTs, which to me is like that's a big problem. I think for the future of that format when the solved version of the game is that tight. It's like kind of hard to imagine a lot of recreationals really wanting to. And now, granted, like a recreational is probably not going to play that way, but if they do start studying and realize, like, oh, I'm supposed to fold nines if I'm under the gun +1 when under the gun opens. I mean, that sounds pretty fucking boring to me. I don't know if I got that exactly right with the nines, but I'm pretty sure that's a correct fold.
I'm actually going to send you. I've got a sheet of different cash game ranges versus different stack sizes that I think you might like.
See, you're part of the problem. You're just going to send me some ranges right away and just fucking let me know.
But like, no, it's true. But the reason why mostly in cash games you have to call a little tighter is the pot odds you're getting, and there's no ante, right, in a lot of them. So they're 3-betting bigger, and there's no ante in the middle. So your range for openings tighter, their range for 3-betting's tighter, and you're also getting worse pot odds. But yeah, boring. I've been doing it because I really want to get better at deep stack play, because I think that there's a lot of hands that you stack for like 50 big stack off with for 50 bigs that you can't stack off with for 100, 150 bigs. And I really want to see, I think that if like my leaks are going to be around turn and river play. So that's what I've been focusing on poker wise.
Definitely. Yeah, I was playing $60 no limit by myself last night, smoking a blunt before I went to bed, and I opened the button, the big blind, 3-bets. I 4-bet, I have queens. He 5-bets me, but not all in. And I slam it all in, and he, of course, had kings, and I had queens, which I know is like the most stock hand ever, but I've been kind of stewing about that in my brain. Like, am I ever folding queens here to the 5-bet from the button?
The non all in 5-bet. I mean, I don't think so. But
okay,
it's kind of just you can call pre-flop to the first 3-bet, but like you prefer to 4-bet.
Yeah.
When they 5-bet, you can do. I don't know. No, get it in. I was gonna say, but I was just thinking about this hand I played the other night. Is this like okay content wise for yeah, okay, cool.
This is about me and you, man. Fuck all them.
Word. Fuck y'all.
No, I like them too, but I mean, if they can't keep up with a hand, it's all good. I feel like whatever we want to talk about, we're talking about. It's all good. All
right, so I 3-bet versus okay, yeah, under the gun raised. I 3-bet aces. We were like 6-handed at a final table. I'm first in chips and second in chips, cold 4-bets, and he's tight, right? So I made it like they made it 2.5 bigs. I made it 7.5. He made it 18 bigs on the button. I had like 80 bigs behind. He had 80. I had like 100 fucking ACR structure. But like I call and I say out loud, no king, please. You know, king on the flop. Check. And I'm like, oh, you really have a king now? You know what I mean? Damn it. Like, anyway, the point, I guess, moral of that story is sometimes you can make calls just knowing pretty much what somebody has to have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But did you end up getting it all in there?
I bet very small on the turn. He called. The board actually ended up 4-flushing, and I said out loud, shit, like, I had 2 aces, none of the flush suit, and I said out loud, like, man, I could make kings fold here, and because the king was of the suit, and I was like, but yeah, he can't just have kings, you know, like he has to have like some like ace queen with the ace of clubs, which was, so I was like, nah, I can't. He's got too many clubs. I check, he checks kings.
Wow. I got
Yeah.
respect for that, man. That's why I need to get more serious about like labeling players and paying more attention to the HUD. And there's just too many times where I feel like I'm ready to make a really good laydown on the river or whatever, where I'm like, basing it on, I played against this person a lot, or I see this person on the site every day. I know they can't just be throwing money away. They can't just be bluffing here. But then I'll always kind of come back to like, oh, but there's fucking dumb people who play these, like there's people who end up here with hands that they shouldn't have. I can't just only give him the hands that he's supposed to have here.
See, I'm good at that. I'm good at doing what you did. It's playing like a fish to try to get the fish.
Yeah.
And so, and the thing is, the wrong way to give a bad player credit is to assume that they are bluffing like in 6 spots. Why would they be good at that? You know? So, if anything, but I do the same thing. I used to be like, yeah, you can have whatever. And in some spots, if they're not making any sense and they're super loose, yeah, you can make some call downs. But you need good reasons, right? In general, what I try to let people or recommend people do is fold bluff catchers, lean towards folding bluff catchers on the river unless you've got like amazing blockers or something just doesn't add up at all. Like the story doesn't make sense, and it's make a good call down here. But for the most part, population under bluffs most scenarios. So if you fold in those spots, like just do it one day where you fold every single time that spot. I promise you, it actually, I'm not going to promise anything, but for the most part, when I do that, I have good days.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it feels like one thing I realized once I started working with BBZ was how many hands that are not maybe like how many situations that aren't maybe sexy enough to even warrant time in your video uploads are huge parts of the game. Like the number one thing he pointed out was you're not defending your big blind enough, you're not stealing enough, which is probably like realistically what any poker coach would end up telling anyone who was sort of a casual MTT player. But yeah, that was like a huge realization. But it is funny because I've had BBZ say to me, when you're watching uploads of these guys, they're not including the boring hands for the most part. Like they're showing you the time where they called 3 streets and the guy had a bluff. They're showing you the time where they bluffed for 3 streets with a bluff. They're not going to necessarily include all of the boring ass hands that really are the vast majority of your win rate.
It's actually completely true. And the way that I would even say it is that people think that mastery involves like doing this like these like very flashy, creative, crazy plays. And it's actually just like deep understanding of the fundamentals is really mastery, and just repeating those things over again is really what's winning money. Those river spots, whatever those weird spots, aren't actually the spots that matter that much in MTTs. It's the spots that happen over and over again to make sure that you're playing them right. So
Definitely.
I'm with Jordan.
One thing that somebody I know who is a longtime MTT killer, I don't think you actually know him. He's like hella anonymous. But I mentioned you to him, and he said his main observation was he's like, that guy amazes me whenever I watch his content because he's been doing this for so long, and he's still so concerned with the tiniest of decisions. Like you still really, really sweat the small stuff. Do you think that's a really critical part of being good at poker?
Man, I don't know. It just is who I am, like I don't necessarily think that what I'm about to say is modelable, but what motivates me is to try to be the best. Like I want to be really, really good. I want to know in and out everything about this game. So, yeah, that's just really important to me. Do you have to be crazy and obsessive to win money at poker? Probably not, but that is my personality. And I do think that maybe to be elite. And I'm not necessarily even saying that I am, but I do compete at the highest levels. I think maybe to be very, very, very good, you yeah, that's you do need that sort of obsessive energy, or that robotic kind of mentality. But to just kind of like, play winning poker, study some charts, play low stakes, nah, you don't need that.
But yeah, I just feel like that's a big. It's got to be a part of the mentality that's made you successful over the years with this. Let me ask you this question too. Well, I think the way that Jordan introduced me to you, or the first thing I heard him say about you was like, I have this student or this guy that I work with, and he won like $1 million playing fucking tournaments, and then I think playing sit and goes or playing 25Ks or something, and then gave it back basically over the course of however many months after that. Is that accurate?
No.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was somebody else, or maybe I got
No,
the
no, no.
story simplified.
I'm going to tell you the story a little better.
Okay.
I want you to see, first of all, though, I want you to see real quick the top. Man, Jordan's such a dick, because I was telling him when I was doing good too, but he had to tell you about the downswing.
I think this is before you were even streaming or anything. This was like a long time ago.
Yeah, he's talking about the 25Ks on GG. Okay, so that like a year and a half, 2 years ago, there was this dude who had only played 25Ks in Malaysia. He was epic. Like, just at first, he was playing any hand pre-flop, would not fold an 8 before the flop. Like, and I was like, okay, I got to play, right? So I got my buddies to back me in that, and they were playing too, occasionally. And I started playing the 25Ks with a very, very small percent of myself, like 30%, maybe even less in some cases. And it was up and down, but then I went on this crazy heater and I made $2 million.
Right.
And I was like giving my buddies like houses each, and I'm like, fuck this. So I'm like, I mean, I felt good about giving my friends money, but like a lot more than I was getting. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a bigger chunk of myself now, like 50, 60%. And then I tanked like 1.5 million, like,
wow,
with a much bigger chunk of myself. Yeah. Well, not all me actually, but like basically a lot of my money I lost more on the downswing than I won on the upswing for sure. But I want to show you the peak of my lifetime graph. Because I found it the other day, and it's I like it. It makes me feel good. 1 second. I just gotta put this. It was before the catastrophe, and without that huge downswing, to be honest, like I probably would never have been streaming.
Because you just would have been so comfortable financially at that point that you would have not been looking for anything new.
Yeah, look at the top of that graph.
Yeah, wow, that's a fucking spike.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is your whole life. This is everything off Shark.
That was before the 1.5, and then the reason I'm glad I have it is for some reason SharkScope just deleted all the 25Ks.
Oh really?
Yeah. So you can't find it anymore. That it existed. You can't even find my downswing or anything.
I wonder why.
Like technically, I'm up like 800,000 in them, but I'm not. But like, yeah, that's so. But like lifetime, I'm still up a lot in MTTs. I'm up like, if you put all the money I put into MTTs, like, and then you if you subtract how much I put in from the net, like I'm up around 4 million.
Wow.
But that's not how much money I have.
But at this point, do you feel motivated mostly by the money, or do you feel like you're still just motivated to be great at this? And do you feel like if you won another $2 million tomorrow, that might
wouldn't change anything. Really.
That wouldn't change anything about your lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean maybe a little bit. Like I would upgrade the whip a little bit and like I mean no, not really. Like I like to play now. Like I don't know, when things go a little bit confusing in my life or during even like um lockdown and everything, I realized that I love this. I'm competent at what I do, and um I like being good at what I do and I just enjoy it. So I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. Twitch might burn me out, fuck, but, but like poker, I'm gonna play.
Yeah, I haven't streamed on Twitch. Like, I definitely haven't streamed a full session in a long time, and now I'm really sort of jonesing for it because I've been playing like whenever I get a chance. Like a lot of times for me, my version of being a degenerate is like finishing up my interviews by like 4 p.m. and then just like immediately grabbing my laptop, late regging all these ACR tournaments because like by that point in the day, it's already like if you want to play a bunch of tournaments, like you basically just have to late reg all these and then maybe be able to like early reg a bunch of them. Um, but yeah, that's definitely like my version of being like a degenerate is that like as soon as I get done my work for the day, it's like boom, I just want to open up tournaments. Um,
How
but
does the fiance feel about that? By the way, congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely she could be a little annoyed at times where it's like, she just wants to watch a movie without me having to like pause it every like 10 minutes, like to fucking freak out about a final table spot and like tell her what's happening and stuff. But I feel like now she gets like what the hands are. And I told her, I'm like, listen, once you know the hands, just try to ignore or like what the best hand is like on the board and whatever. I'm like, just try to ignore the betting because I'm like, that's the confusing part is like how the betting is proceeding. That's going to be confusing to you, but just try to focus on what cards I have, what cards they have in the middle. And now I think she gets pretty excited about it. Although she definitely doesn't have like the ability to deal with the stress. Like for her, like we were watching an Egyptian had this big ass final table the other day, and he was down to like 8 big blinds, and he just called like a button shove with ace 7 off, and the guy had ace 2 off. 2 comes down on the flop. I mean, you would have thought that she had just really witnessed like an atrocity. Like it was really hard for her to wrap her head around how unjust what just happened was.
You know what? You should tell her that. Actually, this is such a Jordan thing to say, but if you think about the equity of that hand, ace 7 versus ace 2, it's I think ace 7 specifically like less than 70%, so you're closer to 50-50. I mean you're actually like you're actually supposed to chop that pot, it's
A lot,
it's not
yeah.
it's not really like that one's not super. I don't know. The thing that I was going to talk about is when people get all mad about chop pot, and I'm like, dude, you're closer to the actual equity than winning the whole thing. When a bad beat happens, though, yeah, I mean, like that's like a missed free throw. It's not like it just is what it is.
Yeah, it becomes tough once you're in that position where like, okay, number one, he had to wait around for a week for that final table because it was like a day 3.
Yeah.
And then you get on there and you have a couple hands not go so well. All of a sudden your 30 big blinds is 8, and you're walking around for that week where you know that you're getting 80,000, but you might get 800,000. It's like you're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about what you're gonna do with that 800,000, or even if you're a little bit more moderate, you're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about if I get 200, 300,000, it's like that's got to be tough to be carrying that around with you all week and then lose it in a spot where you had good equity.
Maybe. I mean, yes, it is tough. I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to be like, nah. But for sure, like the point I'm trying to make is more just like, okay, every time I start doing that, I lose, man. Every time I start thinking about what I'm going to do with the money, like, man, main event 2 years, I had like 300 to 400,000 stack, which you start with 30,000. So that's a pretty big stack. approaching the money, and I'm like just getting real cocky. Like I'm like looking around like, oh man, they got no chance. And I'm looking at first place, second place, and I'm thinking about what I'm gonna do with that 8 million. I'm like thinking about taxes, and I'm like, shit, it's gonna be such a problem, you know. Like I'm already thinking about what I'm gonna do and taxes, what I'm gonna do. Bro, like I can't. Because that's it gets me away from the moment and the table. So like I really do try to not think like that, but yeah, I would hate having to wait like that week. I don't like that. I don't even like 2 dayers because like I feel like you get me out of my zone, my vibe, you know, and I have to wake up again and do that again. So
Yeah, yo, that pisses me off on ACR when there's like really good 2 day events, and I know for a fact that I have to do like 3 podcasts on the day 2, so I'm not playing it. But I'm like watching the lobby fill up, and I'm like, oh, the tournament just started, and there's 400 people already in that tournament. I'm sure that they're not all pros. That's probably a really good tournament, but can't play it because I got a job.
Oh, when I won $1 million in that one tournament, I actually felt the same way. It was a 3-day 5K, and I didn't see how many people were in it. I was just like 3-day 5K, man. I was like, because I was more busy I was more into like doing service work at that point in time and doing like life stuff. And so I was like, oh, I can't do that. But then somebody messaged me that Monday and was like, LOL, this overlay 5K. And I was like, what? 5K overlay? And I canceled everything. I was like, holy crap. I didn't even see that it had such a huge guarantee and that there might be an overlay. 5K with 1,000 people in it. I don't know how I missed it. And so I'm really glad that my friend said that. And also lucky for him because we ended up swapping. But yeah, same kind of thing. I was not really planning on doing it. I had a commitment. I had a service commitment that I had my friend take over for me. I didn't tell her that I ended up winning $1 million because but I bought her a meal or two. I was like, I'm buying you a meal for doing that. Thank you.
Do you not like to talk about money with the normal people in your life? Because it's got to just be kind of overwhelming for you to be like, hey, I lost $100,000 today. And,
Yeah, it's, I don't know your audience. You know what I mean? Like you're in the end though, like your friends who aren't shady, like just understand that you're not like flexing. You're just like talking about the ups and downs of your life, But with certain people, I think people perceive that as really strange, like just that I've had minus 400K days or that I've won $1 million in a day. Like those numbers are weird to a lot of people, right? And so, and life changing to a lot of people. So I actually keep it quiet for the most part.
Definitely. When you talk about the main event and shit, to a lot of these guys who are, good MTT players, I mean, you're probably better than a lot of them. Does that have any, does it stand out to you that you'd like to do that? Even though, there's tons of $10,000 tournaments that you could enter on any given Sunday. Maybe not tons, but there's some. And, there's probably you could put more money into play on a given Sunday by just staying home than flying to another country to play a big MTT. But at the same time, you win that, there's crazy prestige associated with that. Like that's I mean, they're gonna put that on your fucking tombstone if you win the World Series of Poker for some reason. But how do you think about that?
I haven't played the main event in like 6 years, but because I just decided that I liked I changed who I was, man. Like I used to be kind of fake tough guy, like I don't think I was ever like a huge dick, but like I just changed the things that I valued, and I noticed that like when I went back to Vegas after going to treatment for the first time, that like I don't know, just like some old behaviors that I didn't like came out, and I was like, you know what, I don't really want to go to Vegas. I'd rather just chill at home. And I also feel like leaving Vancouver in the summer just feels like a bad play. Because if you've ever been here in the summer, it's fucking nice.
It
So,
is.
so that's like, I haven't been, but yeah, winning the main's the dream for everybody. I mean, if it's not, like, come on.
Right. But you have to give up a lot. Like you'd have to turn down a whole shitload of days where you could play and be profitable for what is essentially like an extreme long shot.
Yeah, and then like I don't know, man. I'm gonna, you can love Vegas if you want. You can be like a Vegas baby woohoo person, but like I feel like that city's kind of depressing. And if you look closely, it's like also the sun's so heavy. I feel like the locals have like this like sort of like leathery skin. Anyway,
That's the meth.
dude, I'm gonna make enemies now. But
Not the poker players. I would assume most of them
people.
are not on meth.
Yeah, you can edit that if you whatever. But it's not that I don't like about Vegas. It's that it worships everything that gets me in trouble, and it's like not just that though. It's like pretends like it's all this like shiny, beautiful shit, but beneath it all, there's like a lot of sleazy stuff going on, and there's just a lot of con artists out there too. It just feels like not really my place. So I like Vancouver. Man, I feel bad. I feel like I probably alienated anyone that chooses to live in Vegas now. But
No, I mean, I'm sure anybody who has any compassion for somebody dealing with addiction or temptation in general, I mean, they can't be that in denial about the fact that Vegas is a better place to ruin your life than pretty much anywhere else on earth, right?
yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's like, like Vegas is cool. Like you can I've got lots of friends that live out there. I'm not trying to like talk down, but for me, it hasn't been a positive place. Like I just always leave like fatter and broker and like more depressed. So I just decided to cut it out of the routine. Now that I've become more of a public personality, that's like the next question is like, do I start traveling the live circuit? ACR kind of wants me to. I think I probably will at some point, but I also think that I'm doing a lot from where I'm at, and having this Twitch streaming schedule and all that. That's what's really important for me to be doing, not so much playing live documents,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you end up in a weird spot. Like I'm in kind of a weird spot right now with poker stuff because recently I've had, a couple different invitations. Basically like people wanted me to go do content on their platforms or do other little opportunities in poker, and it's like I kind of have to turn them down because me taking 3 weekdays off to go do some content, it means that there's like this big ass opportunity cost because I'm doing all these podcasts that are like sustaining my whole business, and we just have a lot of different shit going on that if I leave for a couple of days, it's like massively debilitating to my business, and that becomes the tough part is that in my head, like I would love to play the main event, but I really can't justify, even let's just say I only last the first couple of days. I mean, even that is a pretty big compromise. If I made it deep, if I made it like min cash territory, it's like, well, then I've really fucked off on my business, big time for what is essentially a pretty small min cash. So those decisions become kind of tough. And like same thing with like what you're saying, like, pre-COVID, like ACR offered to fly me to the cage thing that they do. And I mean, I was so fucking hyped to, get a free buy-in to this fucking tournament and free flight and hotel and shit. But yeah, when I really start thinking about it intelligently, it's like, well, that might not be a very good decision for me in terms of my, financial situation. Although at the same time, in terms of me, potentially becoming a more well-known poker player, that might be a very good decision.
Yeah, but then there's also this other thing, like there's this life EV thing, and it's like I mean, at what point do you feel like money's supposed to be an obstacle remover, not necessarily this thing that makes you not do what you want to do?
Very true.
So, I don't know. I'm not really sure either because I feel the same way. Like I've got I've got my like everything set up right here. The routine's working, and I don't really want to mess with it too much. I'm also enjoying it. I'm getting a lot out of building stuff, you know, and so the idea of uprooting that right now is a little bit like, but I also I also have aspirations because I've been like while these like most of these American rigs have just been like playing live tournaments and chilling, like I've been in the lab like playing like everybody, the best in the world. So I can't wait to play a little bit more live. And yeah, last time I played live, I actually like had pretty good results and felt good about it too. So that thing right now is what I'm concerned with. Like I'm like, do I do this whole cage thing? Do I start doing the live circuit, or do I just like keep it where it's working? You know?
Yeah, I got to do at least some of it because I still never played a live tournament. So I got to at least get the feel for it for sure.
Bro, you're like me. Like my first main event, the biggest live tournament I played before that was a 20 rebuy, and I'm playing a $10,000 buy-in live, and like I feel like very intimidated by it all, like because I barely know. Like I'm like, you know, and what I did actually, my way of coping with feeling like nervous is I'm like, all these guys feel so nervous right now. I'm gonna bluff the shit out of them, and and I'm like, I'm running this big bluff in level 2, and I'm like, man, he's got to fold a set right now. He tanks for a bit and calls me with top pair 2 kicker, and I'm out of the main event.
Wow.
Yeah, my first main event, I did that.
Did you rebuy?
You couldn't back then.
Oh, fucking hell. That's really crazy to me. The idea of like flying somewhere to play in a tournament, busting out, and then what? You got to like go get your ass kicked in cash games, or like grab your laptop and go back to the hotel room.
I think that's actually when I started drinking again. Right around then. I honestly do think that. But that trip to Vegas actually was when I started drinking again because I'd stopped working on that. I do think now you kind of mentioned it earlier, like what keeps me from going, like knowing I'll ever go back. I don't know. I just get super disgusted at the idea of what I become on that shit. But yeah, like that was tough. There were a lot of different little emotional leaks that I had. Thinking people were attacking me personally, taking that personally, and you know, just like in your reasons for doing something, like fuck this guy should never be a reason, but it is sometimes. You know,
I feel it definitely.
But actually, like one thing, I don't know if this is helpful or not, because a lot of people talk about my mental game when I'm playing, and one of the things is that, like, when I get 3-bet by the same guy a lot, I'm like, this mother, like I'm like, I get personally offended, and I try to get them back in a way, subtly, not like directly, but. I went to Elliot Rowe, this hypnotherapist, and he was like, well, when's the first time you were feeling this? We went back in time, and it was when I was getting picked on when I was in 3rd grade, when I first moved to Texas, by these kids on the bus. And then I realized I was bigger than them and started fighting back. And like this pattern of reacting to aggression with like more aggression in my life is actually one that has kept coming up, right? And at the end of it, he's like, so you're going to let like 8-year-old John make your decisions at the poker table? And I'm like, hell no, right? So I like that kind of stuff helped me drop the emotional stuff that happens at the table. And I just, again, I'm always just trying to come back to just clear-headed and making a decision and taking myself out of it. Not like, oh man, he's after me. If he is, cool. Let's figure out why and how, you know? But
Definitely. The hypnotherapy, that was good for you? You enjoyed that?
I mean, it's not for everyone, but like, yeah, this I think what people sometimes need, like for me, I'm open to any tool, anytime to try to get me more optimized. Like right now, I'm doing this thing called NeuroPeak 2. It's precision breathing, where I've got a heart rate monitor, this thing here, like a little a brain thing, and I'm trying to get like everything synced up. Like anything that can help me with my mental game, get me better at poker, help me with endurance, I'm down to do and try.
Right. For sure. What's your schedule like? Like, how many days a week do you dedicate to not playing poker, and how has that changed over time? Did you used to just play whenever the fuck you wanted? How's that changed?
For about 5 years, when I was like really, really into the recovery thing, I made it so that I did coaching during the week so I could plan my week and study during the week and play on the weekends and then take big series off. That was what I did for the last 5 years. Or for the 5 year period between like 2013 and like 2018, 2019. And then, the 25Ks happened, and like there were a few big scores that happened where I was like, really feeling like I got to sharpen my skills. And then the streaming stuff happened, and because I didn't go out at all during COVID, and I kind of lost some. I just didn't have the ties I had at one point. I was like, let's just fully go into poker and streaming and coaching and see what happens. So I don't get many days off these days. But what's been happening is good shit. Like what's been happening is, like I'm getting like the Apestyles bundle, which is just this work that I did.
Yeah. Which I
is
did
getting a
the
lot of
whole thing, and I
recognition.
can highly recommend.
Yeah, man. You were talking about like, yeah, you hit me up with any question you got in there. I think like the main thing that it gets people doing is just like attacking spots more, playing more aggressively, but like having some precision about it. And I think it's just an introduction to how I view the game, I think, but above all, like it was really just some videos that I made based on topics that I thought people wanted to know about, based on stuff that I was learning, and we just put it all together in a bundle. And it's just been cool because they're selling like crazy, and people are really, really liking them, and that feels good. That feels good that I've made something that people relate to, and that is helping them make money. Yeah, maybe it's making the game tougher, but not necessarily at my level. And if some people are going to make money, they might as well be people that are my people,
Right.
like people that are supporting me. So that to me feels good. Like, and I really love to see it when someone, even like a 50-year-old is like, like for the first time is like, okay, I can study this, I can do this, okay, I can do that, and getting people like getting recreationals into like the studying aspect of the game, and then now they're making more money for their family and stuff. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah, I feel like the Ape Styles Twitch community has a good number of seniors in it.
What is it about me, man?
I don't know. What is that? Yeah.
I don't know. Like I definitely feel like the average age is kind of old in my community, but you know what? The chat vibe is very wise, and I like that. I like that I bring that crowd, and I think it's because I stand for. I didn't realize this, but I guess I kind of stand for wholesome things, which is just essentially I'm trying to put like more good energy out there, more love, and that's what people are vibing with, and I appreciate that. It is kind of funny just because, like, yeah, I mean, I sometimes view myself as like still this kind of messed up kid, and it's interesting that I've drawn so many different types of people and so many different types of people and age demographics and everything are like vibing with me. That's cool.
Definitely. I mean, think about it like this. okay, when you look at rappers, the rapper who has the more compelling story is usually the one who's gonna win. You know, like people don't really want to hear your life story if you haven't really been through a lot of shit. I mean, everybody has a narrative, and I feel like a lot of poker streamers, when you look at them, it's like, what's the narrative? I mean, he's a young guy who's trying to make money playing poker online, and we all respect that. We all have love for that dream. But I think when people look at you, there is an extent to which anybody who sort of digs in a little bit and learns about you can be like, oh, this is a guy who's really been through hell and back, and is
My own
one of the
causing,
best.
but yeah.
What'd you say?
My own causing, but yes.
True, but I mean, that I think that I could see very much why that appeals to a lot of people, in terms of just knowing that you're able to play at this level after having been through so much. I mean, that's one thing about a lot of poker pros, is that a lot of times it seems like they've kind of had like a sort of like a weird life experience where they haven't been through a lot of real life stuff, because the profession just sort of keeps you locked away in your room, and it attracts people who are very mathematical and logical.
I'm secretively like that. Like both my parents have math degrees.
Really?
Yeah, my mom was a vice president of IBM, and there's like lots of vice presidents. It's not like the vice president, but and my dad was a computer programmer, so like that's why I was DJ Apestyles actually for a while, and really liked music, but I wasn't very good at it. And poker tricked me into a math career because I've always been naturally good at math, but kind of thought it was boring, And then all of a sudden I'm like, you got me, poker. I'm in a math career. And I do approach poker with totally a mathematical perspective because, well, there's only we use math to represent how the world works. And if you're not using math, you're inaccurate, right? So I definitely value that way of going about things. But yeah, I think that, my story is definitely different than most. And it's cool that people relate to that. I do think a lot of guys are like, when you meet guys at the top level, a lot of them are sort of, I don't even mean this in a mean way, but like a little bit on the almost like autistic spectrum, a little bit like where
That
they
probably
just
helps.
what?
I mean, I think that probably
I think
helps.
So. I think that like Asperger's is like pretty high at that level because it's just like, yeah, it makes sense. Like poker makes sense on that level, and the way humans act doesn't make that much sense sometimes, And so I definitely think that having put myself through a lot of different things and also having screwed up enough, right? Like I can see a lot of different perspectives and I'm not very judgmental because I've screwed up so much in my life. So like, yeah, I do think that makes me probably a little bit more human than most. The guys who are like, technically.
That's one thing I think is pretty funny about poker players is that I think a lot of dudes don't even realize that they're doing it, but they talk about like you maybe do it a little bit once in a while, but for the most part, when you're talking about your decisions while you're playing, you're pretty much talking about them as if they are your own decisions. But there's a lot of people who, while they're streaming or whatever, they're talking about, we get to do this here, or we're supposed to do this. The solver says we're supposed to do this, and it kind of stands out to me as like, this is maybe not the most marketable way to talk about your decision-making process because it kind of like takes the humanity out of it, And a lot of people even will kind of default to saying like, we get to do this here, and they won't even bother to break down like, we get to do this here because they have a lot of these hands and we have more of this type of hand, etc. And maybe some dudes don't realize that they're doing it, but I find that can, it's not really a turnoff for me because I know how to interpret it, but I feel like to a fair amount of people that might be kind of a turnoff.
Well, so like I was lucky to be in a study group that was like first on solvers in 2013, and they were like baffling at first, right? Because there was some stuff that they were doing that we were not doing, and we spent a lot of time trying to figure out why it's doing what it's doing. So that's basically what a lot of the Ape Styles bundle is, and those videos is me using my experience with lots and lots of solves, talking about them holistically and trying to say things like in a general way so that you can approach them in like over and over again. And I'm not really trying to play like a solver. I'm using solvers to understand ideas. And then like solvers are also exploitation machines too. If you can put in what you think they're doing, and then the solver will have the best response strategy as well. So that's really what I'm trying to do when I'm playing is understanding roughly where the GTO is in a spot, and then figuring out how to best exploit the villains that I'm playing against if they're not playing that, right? But I'm definitely not trying to mimic solver strategy too much. I have a bunch of different models in my head for how things are supposed to play out, and I adjust based on my assumptions in the moment.
Definitely. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So, I played outside of my normal buy-in range. I played one on Sunday that was like a $600 ACR tournament, like 100K guaranteed, and was doing very well throughout the whole thing. Had suffered a few losses, but then all of a sudden we're like 30 away from the money, and the button opens, and I have 30 big blinds, and I think he probably has me covered, or maybe I have him covered by a little bit, but I have ace nine off, and I'm in the big blind, and I'm weighing my options, and of course I could just call, even though it's offsuit. I tend to like flat call, I guess, more with a suited ace nine here, but I could definitely call. I could three bet fold, or I could three bet call, I guess. But I instead chose to shove all in, thinking, he's opening on the button. He's got enough bullshit here that he has to fold. I might as well put all the pressure on him. He doesn't want to get knocked out when there's 30 away from the money and there's a whole shitloads of three big blind stacks. Rate these options, and where does shoving all in there fall?
I think it's gonna be fine to shove all in from like an EV perspective,
Right.
because like you can shove if you want in that spot, like non-zero, like I don't know, like even like ace two offsuit.
Right.
However, what do you think the villain's calling range is?
Probably like ace queen plus and maybe like eights plus.
How do you think? How do you think ace nine does versus that calling range?
That's a good question. I mean, against specific hands, obviously if he has eights and he calls, it's all right. We're running the race here. If he has ace queen, then we're what, like 25% or something to win this. So not great, since most of the hands he's calling with are obviously bad.
Well, yeah, so what I'm looking at here is it looks like their calling range should be like looser than it really is, like fours plus ace seven suited ace nine.
Wow.
But that's not actually not what people are calling. It's probably more like, I think sixes plus ace 10 offsuit, king queen suited, maybe queen jack suited, like maybe king jack suited. Like people are pretty tight versus 30 big blind reshoves.
Yeah, I feel like even the king queen suited is getting folded a lot by a lot of players there.
So if that's the case, so you can just reshove a lot there. However, if you're thinking about how you do versus their calling range, if it's a very tight calling range, stuff like 9-10 suited actually does better in calling, and you actually don't even block calling range well enough with the ace nine offsuit there for it to be a very good shove, because they have a lot of ace X in their raise fold range with 30 bigs. Like they have all those low ace X's. Oddly enough, you can shove ace two offsuit because you make better aces fold. But ace nine offsuit, basically, when you reshove there in that specific spot with 30 big blinds, not with 20. With 20, you can get called by worse enough, right? But with 30 big blinds, it's going to play better as a call, in my opinion, because you're going to keep all those ace X in that you have dominated, and you don't play that well when you are called when you reshove. Not a bad reshove, EV wise, going to be pretty close. Doesn't matter, but like strategically, I would start reshoving around like ace 10, ace jack versus late position, and that's also why I don't reshove like ace jack offsuit versus early position in the big blind. It's always a call because they're never going to call you. You play very poorly versus their calling range.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one thing I notice when I watch good players is that I will kind of like default to shoving, a 25, 30 big blind stack in those situations where I know that it's plus EV. And a really good player will do a lot more calling and do a lot more like measured calling down or even having to make the big fold, because you take a lot of the guesswork out of playing the hand when you just shove, when you default to shove. And that's one thing for me. I tend to just go for it. Anytime I feel like it's an appropriate shove or it's an okay shove, it's easier to shove than to have to then delicately play the hand afterwards, which if you don't feel comfortable post flop might actually be like way more plus EV than the other options. But if you're
especially
a good player,
if they're raising buttons a lot and folding a lot, like you just make so much from the reshove itself that it's okay. But what I'm saying is that like your hand class is actually like, if you think about how like 9-8 suited performs against the calling range, it's probably very similar to ace 9 offsuit. Because nothing worse really calls. Or there are those suited broadways that can call, but they're suited combos and they have nice equity versus you. So yeah, like, but what you just talked about is definitely true too. And you see it in a lot of different spots, both pre and post flop. Population likes to not have to make a decision and go all in. So there are lots of spots where you can take advantage of that too. Like one example would be 30 big blinds effective if you check raise on a two-tone board and a random player just calls on a two-tone board, they almost never have a flush draw. So if the flush comes in, you get to go crazy. Just a random example of spots where people like to just not make a decision and shove in. As a professional, though, like I actually have stopped liking some of these big 30 big blind reshoves, 40 big blind reshoves, because I'm confident that I can, with less risk, make a similar amount of money, if not more, in the post-flop game tree.
Definitely.
On a 1 to 10 scale, like how nerdy did I just sound?
No, I absorbed everything you said there. But I mean, I've honestly watched enough poker stuff over the past couple of years that, dude, like, I remember just like randomly having a thought a couple of years ago of like, I want to see what the online poker YouTuber space is like. And I just randomly end up on a fucking Jamie Staples video. And, bro, I didn't understand the bounties. And I'm looking at this video like, either there's something I really don't understand here, or this guy's the worst fucking player on earth. Because I had no idea. And then I start to realize, like, oh, there's a bounty? Where the fuck did that come from? They didn't have that back pre-Black Friday.
Dude.
Yeah.
When I first released this Venom video of me playing the Venom on America's Card Room, huge tournament, by the way. It was a bounty, and I called off in a few of these spots that were like, I looked at them later, they were fine. But man, so many dislikes on that video, so many like people who were just like, this guy thinks he can teach poker, and like, talking about different hands I played, and back then I cared, like, and so I wrote these like long responses that actually where I kind of like explained to them bounty power and the math that I was using and all this stuff. And then, they're like, oh, but now I just don't even look at the comments because it's just not where my time should be spent, Jordan put it pretty well too. And he was like, yo, how many comments on poker videos have you left on you or on YouTube? And I was like, He was like, exactly. I was like, yeah. Um, but what I mean, you can take that to it. But what I mean by that is just like, I appreciate when people say positive things. I even appreciate like constructive criticism, but I've also realized how easy it is for people to sit on the sideline having done nothing, but say like, "Oh, you should have done this," and it's like, I mean, I do it, and I used this the other day. I was walking outside, and they were fixing the street, and I was like, "What the hell? The street's fine." You know, and I have no idea what's going on. Like they could be fixing like all kinds of shit. But like I'm like, these idiots, they don't even know the street's good. You know, like maybe there's something else going on there.
Yeah,
You know?
I feel like that's a big part of getting older is when you're young, you get to just sort of like throw your opinion around all willy nilly. And then as I've gotten older, my mind state will gravitate much more to, oh, well, I wonder why they did that. Not even poker
Yes.
specifically, but, things I don't understand, I'll think, well, there's got to be people making this decision who have some degree of expertise. I wonder why they made that decision. And I think if you want to be a smart person, then that's definitely where you want to be gravitating towards. I've kind of noticed this with comedians. I'll watch a comedian who I really like, and they'll make a joke about something, but it'll be something where I understand that thing that they're making the joke about. Mm-hmm. But the joke is like, this dude did this. What the fuck is that? Why would he do that? Yada yada yada. And the whole joke is predicated on them not understanding that thing. The more you understand something, the less you can sort of joke around about it.
Yeah. Actually, it's true, and everything's deep, and like, I do think that. Yeah, I still do it though. I still am an armchair quarterback to some degree. It's fun, it's fun to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. But truly, when it comes to anything but poker, I am not an expert, and like my opinion should be taken that way. And I think, yeah, the problem sometimes too when you don't know a lot is you can't even see how much you don't know. So, and you feel like you got to share that opinion.
Recently, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Recently, somebody that I know was like really bugging me, trying to get me to go fishing with them. And I'm just, I haven't been fishing since I was a teenager. And they're talking about how great it is and how, they hang out and they smoke weed and they drink beers and they fish and you catch these huge fucking fish and all this. And he could tell that I'm not really like listening to him when he's telling me about how great fishing is. And he starts like really pressed, and he's like, why won't you go fishing with us? Like, you'd have a good time, you go fishing with us. And I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, on a given Sunday, here's my list of things that I think are worth my time that I'm choosing between on any given Sunday. Business, my business, basically, obviously that is something that I typically kind of put on the shelf for Sunday. It's the weekend. I'm trying not to like really be focused on working and answering emails and shit on the Sunday.
You need a day off, man.
Yeah. Sunday's a day off. So then after that, my family, being around my daughter, all that shit, that's clearly like very high on this list. Mm-hmm. Then there's poker. Then there's, I've been riding BMX bikes my whole life. Like I've kind of put that on the shelf, but I could go ride bikes with my friends and have a great time that way. I don't doubt that there's a lot of good stuff about fishing, but when I already have a bunch of stuff in my life that is important to me and that I feel like I'm pretty good at, or that I have, that I could improve at, like a day spent playing poker for me is not a wasted day at all. That's like, there's a shitload of hands I could mark, observations I could make, not to mention the potential financial benefit. And that was like really interesting. I'm thinking about that because that structure that I just laid out there really prohibits me from doing a lot of things. That's really why I don't go out and drink anymore. A lot of my friends, like, that's what they want to do on a Saturday night. To me, it's like I'd way rather wake up at 8 in the morning on a Sunday and feel great than be in the club on a Saturday night. I don't know.
I've kind of I've like done a lot of that. Like I have some pretty epic stories. Pretty much like everything dumb and messed up I've ever done in my life, I did drinking. But like, I don't know, part of me, when you say that, I'm like, yeah, man, you're optimized. You're all about building and growing, and you're getting a lot of satisfaction out of that. But then, like, another part of me is kind of like, you also need some moments to just be, to just like, and that doesn't need to be fishing with your buddy because or whatever. But like, I think moments where you're just away from it all and like unplugged, attached. I mean unattached, maybe with your fiance or whatever. But like, yeah, I do think that those moments are necessary. And they're you got to schedule them in. It feels weird too, but
Yeah, no,
relax time.
and that's what I realized too was that when I was thinking about fishing, I was thinking the version of fishing that sounds attractive to me is being out on this boat or whatever, like quiet, solemn, peaceful. That version of fishing sounds kind of attractive to me. The more detail he went into, the more I realized, because he's trying to win me over. He's trying to convince me that this will be a really good time. He thinks that I want to turn up. As soon as he's talking about cracking PBRs and shit, I'm like, oh, like that really don't sound like what I want to do on a Sunday. Like, lightly turning up all day. Like, nah, I'm all right.
Yeah. See, that makes sense though, because like having that space is important. I even I've done 2 10-day silent retreats, man.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Where in Merritt, where you can't. Man, actually though, I want to tell this story, but I gotta pee.
Okay. Yeah, we'll edit. Go for it.
I didn't know if I wanted to put this out there, but like it happened. It was a long time ago, and yeah, I was 16. I'd been drinking. I was at my buddy's house. Another friend came over and said this guy had just stolen a pound of weed from him, and we called him up. And he said his name. He was like, "I'll shoot you if you come over. I'll shoot your grandma. I'll shoot your mama." But I was like, this guy wouldn't just tell me his name and then shoot me, right? So long story short, if someone tells you they're going to shoot you if you go over there, don't go there. So we went over there. It was birdshot. It was a shotgun from long distance. And this is how alcohol gets me in trouble, right? Like, I thought it was fireworks when it went off. And then I looked down and my arm looks like a blueberry muffin or something. It just like a bunch of different holes and blood coming out of it. So like I ran back to the car with a collapsed lung, got to ride a helicopter. Didn't really get to enjoy it so much.
I thought for sure you were going to say that you got grazed or that it didn't hit you anywhere serious.
Oh, no. Like my lungs collapsed. One was this close to my aorta. Like that's instant death. And I still have pellets in me.
Wow.
Like, yeah, like the sick thing is like they come to the surface. Your body pushes them out. So they had to take some out, but some are still in. And I remember like 6 to 9 months later, I was like still feeling pain in weird spots where I wasn't even thinking that I should. And I had I had stitches the whole way up here. And because they cut me up in the middle. And I asked the doctor, like, why am I still feeling pain there? And he's like, oh, it's probably just like your intestinal bruising because we took all your intestines out and put it on the table. And I was like, oh, man, like just picturing myself. I'm like, oh, man, that's messed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did that change you?
Honestly, seeing my mom and like the way it kind of aged her, and it made me change. Like I realized that like that's not for me, like that life, like that kind of shit, and that like I was pretending to be a tough guy. I never really was, and it did help me turn things around a bit. Although I was still hanging with the same guys afterwards and stuff, but like it was one beginning of changing that kind of like who I was. And I mean, if you look at it, my senior year in high school, I had all straight A's. And I ended up going to USC after that. So maybe it did change. It changed my perspective. It scared me. It also it gave me a lot of like street cred in high school, man.
Wow, I bet.
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. I might not have seemed as shocked as a lot of people would have been by you revealing that, but I feel like I interview people like every week who have been shot like multiple times every week,
Yeah.
and definitely there's almost like you're kind of like, especially when you're talking about people in gangs and stuff, you're kind of like so used to them having been shot that you're sort of shocked when they haven't been shot, and sometimes you'll even. I've been interviewing rappers where they've said I had everything happen to me besides getting shot, and it's almost with like a tiny little degree of like shame that they know that some certain percentage of people are gonna think that they're not really about that life because they never been shot.
I that's like I'm gonna say this very, very clearly. I am not about that life. but
Same here.
and that circumstance definitely did make me even more aware of that like I was just trying to like stand up with it was it was four of us rolling over to somebody's house like to collect. So I mean like obviously uh he had some grounds for self-defense in that spot too and but like and I don't really know what our intentions were. Like I wasn't like I wasn't getting in fights all the time or anything like that. But the point I'm trying to make though is that like that story makes me sound like I was like in things way more than I was. I was just like more just about partying and hanging out and making music and stuff. Right.
I feel you. Um, Man, that makes me think though. Like I went to the mall with my girl Sunday or Saturday,
Yeah.
and there was a guy in line behind us at the Louis Vuitton store because they make you wait in the line because there can only be like four people in there or some shit now, and there's a guy behind us in line, and he's got tattoos on his face and he's got a blue hoodie. So I mean, in my head, I already could tell he's a Crip. I already, L.A. meter sensor goes off. I know this guy's a gang member, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm only really paying attention to that because I'm wondering. I'm just kind of trying to pay attention to be like, is this guy going to notice me? Is this guy going to, because I'm associated with a lot of gang members and I don't ever take sides or anything like that. But I also am, just wondering, like, just keeping a little eye on him out of the corner of my eye. And I had like a certain level of alert, which is not very high because that's like a common type of guy to see around LA.
Mm-hmm.
But then I noticed he's got a big ass bullet hole in his shin. Like he clearly had been shot in the shin. And that definitely, in terms of like my own sort of like quiet mental calculus of what kind of guy this was, as soon as I noticed that like he definitely took a fucking bullet to his shin, the risk factor definitely went up a little bit. Like it definitely changes how you view somebody when you know that they've survived that.
It's interesting though, man, because like I've actually used my size and used kind of being a tough guy like to get my way in the past or make sure that people knew that they couldn't like talk to me a certain way. And um like I'm actually working on giving that up, like and like not making that like not taking it there ever really unless it's self-defense or like really really needed. You know what I mean? Like but like I used to be the kind of guy that like I wasn't looking for it, but if you brought it my direction, like I wasn't gonna back down either. And now I'm more interested in like diffusing situations because I like my life, man. I've got a lot good shit going on. Like I'm not gonna let some random ass dude like you don't deserve my fist. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't mean it like that, but I'm just saying that like I don't want to do that, and that's not what I want to put out in the world either. Like I'm not trying to start shit. And the thing is, a lot of the times, if you can kind of figure out where people are coming from, you realize that they're just confused. They're just going through whatever they're going through. Like when someone's like, for instance, in the stream, I get a lot of love. People are really cool, but like occasionally someone comes in with some bitter, like negative stuff, and like they bring in some hatred, and like I'm like, man, I will take all this love. Thank you so much. That hatred, though, you can keep, man. You know what I mean? That's your stuff. That's not mine. And I don't
Yeah,
need
I
to
mean
respond to it.
that is the easiest decision on earth to block somebody when they show up in your Twitch chat, they got negativity to offer. I can press two buttons. I click my mouse two times, and you can never come back. You can make a new account, but that's a good feeling to just be able to. Because that's the power you wish you had in every part of your life. You wish that when you're at a bar or a restaurant and somebody comes up and tells you that your girl's ugly or tells you that you look stupid or whatever, if that were to be what someone would do in real life, you're not going to be able to just X them out of your life. You're going to have to get in their face, punch them, or ignore it, or try to diffuse the situation in some other way. If anything, that's kind of the nice part about the internet is that process has been simplified a lot.
I got to ask you a question that like you may want to edit later. I don't know, but like, is it cool if I ask you like a personal question?
Of course.
Yeah, like I follow like drill, like Chicago drill rap, and like not too much. Just like I follow a lot of different hip hop. I've always like been interested in it, and there was that Zach.
Zach
Was it?
TV.
Yeah, like it seemed like yeah, like that he got killed based on perceived taking of sides and some kind of in gang shit, and like it looked like you can get killed just for trying to report. And I'm like, damn, man, that's scary. Like,
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I definitely move a lot differently than I used to. It's funny because when what you were just saying about like this guy doesn't deserve my fist. I feel the same way, but I feel that I get to feel that way because I either have a gun on me or I have somebody around me that has a gun like 99% of the time, And that's very much how I regard that situation is like, I'm just not going to I'm not going to argue with you or get into a scrap with you or whatever. Like, I'm just not, we're going to handle this a different way. And that very much like, I feel like I've grown a lot as a person. I feel like I've gotten a lot softer as a person, which is something that I think I sort of recognize in you. That's something that's really important to me that I desire a lot is to be a more emotional, open person.
Yeah.
And through therapy over the past couple of years and whatnot, I feel like I've gotten a lot better in that regard. Like I used to fight with my dad a lot when I was in my teenage years, and I really kind of like flipped the switch of just sort of not being able to cry, not being able to get emotional because I didn't want to seem like a pussy when I'm out here like fucking getting into it with my dad. And then that's something that's become really important to me. Like, I want to be emotionally available to my kid. I think I've caused myself big problems in my life by maybe like firing people without necessarily giving them a real sit down and sort of humanizing the experience. I've definitely like fired people that I had in my life for years and years, and then I just sort of texted them one day and told them like, yo, it's over. And a lot of people they won't take that too well, and I think that there's a lot of benefit to be had in terms of just being very human with people, and that's something that I sort of cut out of my life at one point. And I see that I think with you too, that I don't want to be a tough guy. I don't want to like put myself out there or have to justify my existence by being hard or something. If anything, I want to be more open and more capable of feeling.
Hell yeah, and like that's the thing is yeah, I used to think like I used to not admit to a lot of things like to what I was feeling, and actually I kind of think that's weak because you're coming from a place of fear of people, of how they're going to react, how they might take advantage, and I think that putting yourself out there, being truthful, is strong. And then the other thing that I'm finding too, sometimes I get frustrated, like I start feeling like, damn, I am becoming soft, like because I used to love like UFC and I still do, but like sometimes I even feel like, oh shit, like I feel bad for people now, like getting their ass beat, and I'm like, man, you're getting soft. But in the end, what I realize is that I feel better than I've ever felt, and that like I'm actually doing, like I'm coming from a place of love and kindness, because that's in the end I want to die like knowing that I've helped a lot of people, but also because it feels good. You know what I mean? Like it feels better for me to not be pissed off cutting people down. It feels good to be in a good mood, try to build people up, talk about what's going on, you know? So it's also because of self-interest that I'm like this now, because it's I think just a better way to be for me.
Definitely. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of you kind of earn that. Like that's the reward for being successful in your life, because you could imagine that if your life hadn't been so, obviously you've been through all these ups and downs and stuff. You can imagine that if you had to be a different kind of person, if your life had worked out in such a way that you had to become or if you had chosen to become a drug dealer, there's a big extent to which a drug dealer doesn't get to be gentle and nice with people.
No,
You know?
it's not valuable in that area, right? And actually, like I had to find friends that weren't poker players, because my poker friends are cool. Like they're smart, they have great takes on things, and they're open, but they're not really. They don't understand the emotional realm very much. So like when I got into recovery, you're talking about a lot of people who've got big hearts. So like I got to mix those two kinds of people, because yeah, when I was hungry, I never really felt comfortable around poker players, because we were just always in this sort of like out-thinking, kind of logical headspace, and no one ever really talked about what was really going on, and that seemed fake to me, not as real. And these days, I've got relationships where, yeah, we know what's going on with each other, and we see each other, and my best friends know everything about me, and that's pretty cool too.
Definitely. Yeah, I appreciate your time. I was like, when I first got into playing poker again, I kind of told myself, like, you got to resist the urge to just start doing podcasts with people, because there's already so many podcasts in poker, and I wasn't sure that I could really bring anything new to the table or whatever. So I've always sort of resisted the urge to do podcasts with poker players. But I'm glad that we got this in, just because you were somebody that I just really wanted to learn a bit more about and have a real conversation with. So I appreciate your time.
Well, fuck yeah, and you know what? I appreciate your time, and let's talk some poker sometime too, man. I got seminars.
For sure, I'm gonna save some more hands, and maybe we could do that in the future. Just out of curiosity, what's the rest of your day look like?
I'm gonna stream, I think.
Okay, nice.
What's up?
No, I was just curious.
Oh, like the plan was to stream if I can pop into stuff still. Let's see what we got going on. If there's 1Ks, I'm streaming. But I was actually gonna ask. I see a 600. Nah, it's the same schedule.
You're looking at the ACR lobby right now?
Yeah. I was hoping there'd be. I want to see if I can still get into Stars 1K. If I can, I'm gonna play them. But otherwise, I'm down to go over some hands.
Oh yeah, actually, I got to go do another interview right now. So
shit, yeah. I thought you were saying you wanted to go over some hands.
No, sometime though, for sure, I would like to. I was just asking about the rest of your day, just out of curiosity of.
Well, hey man, like you should, if you can, save a bunch of hands. And would you feel okay going over them in seminar? Like I'm actually nicer than Jordan. Like I'm I care about your feelings and shit. So I'll nicely tell you when you fuck up.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I was just watching Jordan's most recent coaching upload on YouTube, and the player that he was talking to was asking some questions that I would kind of say would be the kind of questions that I would ask. It was, I felt like this player was probably maybe a little better than me, but it was in the general ballpark of the kind of stuff that I would ask him. And I just very much got I noticed, I'm like, Jordan is answering these questions a lot more harshly to one of his students than he does to me, because anytime I do something right, he's pretty hyped, because this isn't my full-time thing or whatever. He's if I do something right, he's impressed. And if I do something wrong, he's like, explains why and whatnot. But I did think it was funny to notice that he had to code switch a little bit for one of his students, where he's actually he's got some skin in the game.
He's not that well, actually Jordan like we were just talking about like briefly working with you, and he actually spoke like really positively about his experience working with you. So I think he maybe just genuinely likes to work with you. But I wouldn't. Yeah, Jordan's just says the truth. He doesn't couch it at all. And the truth, I do that too. But I also try to like make sure, like, see. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna if you're messing up, I'm gonna tell you where you are. But I also try to let you know where you're doing stuff well, and I try to not make it like too harsh, you know. But that being said, I was kidding, and I also don't really think you're the kind of guy that cares that much if someone tells you, you know, if it's the truth and you're making a mistake and you can fix it, that's like a good thing, you know. So
yeah, I mean, that's one thing I have to say. When my mentality on poker back in the day, when like my poker bankroll was my life bankroll. I mean, when I would fuck up or have like a terrible day playing poker back then, that shit would hurt. Now, even my worst day, my worst Sunday where I punt off, 5K or whatever, it doesn't really like scratch the surface too much of and I'm not in the position where I'm turning down 5,000. 5,000 still, I never want to be the kind of person that's going to treat 5,000 like it's not a big deal. But, I can have a losing Sunday and not really lose sleep about it, which is a great feeling, because I feel like that was the one thing that I really hated about poker when I played all the time, was just the fact, like, just having my future tied up in this game, and having all of my future tied up in this game was just very, very stressful,
Yeah, and I've been there, and like, for me, like being super rich isn't that much different than being like kind of rich, or like for me, but like being broke sucked, man. Like being really broke. Yeah, and not knowing where I was gonna, like, if I was gonna be able to eat, all that shit. Like I've been there through poker, and that is super stressful. So like people are like, man, how do you like deal with like these bad beats and these huge tournaments? And it's like, well, because nothing really changes. Like I'm pretty set. I've got like this whole streaming thing going on now too. I got the coaching stuff. And poker, I've made enough to where I'm comfortable enough in my own skill set. The only thing now that really bothers me is when I make a huge mistake or look stupid in front of people. That's hard for me to deal with. But I just have to kind of realize, dude, like, like you're a fucking screw up addict. What makes you think you can play perfect poker, Like, so, and some people, I also have to realize that my big mistakes and looking stupid are part of what people watch for. They're not watching me because I'm like, not just because I do think I'm at the table. I think I'm pretty nasty, but they're not watching me just for that. They're watching me because of what you were talking about, because I'm like a human that's been through some stuff, I think. And I play like pretty wild poker or whatever.
It's funny how you just said that you could be a pretty nasty person on the table, because I was thinking about that when I was talking about, I think, both of us trying to be softer and nicer and more kind in our lives and stuff, is that really in poker, you're incentivized to be the worst person you can be in a lot of ways, like in terms of style of play. Because, okay, like when you're down to the final 12 people and you see a player get knocked out to a big stack, so now there's a huge stack, your brain is like, fuck yeah, income inequality. We got Elon Musk right here, and then this guy just went bankrupt, and he's not even at the table anymore. But that's the best case scenario. Aside from you winning that pot yourself, best case scenario is the rich getting richer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not even like, I mean, I remember I won a tournament in France, Partouche Poker Tour. I was drinking, and like, I'm not like this in other areas of my life, but I take being a poker player seriously. So we were on the money bubble, and these guys were folding king queen offsuit to 6 big blind shoves face up. Like, it was wild. right? Like in the big blind. And they wanted to, they were all like recreationals, and they wanted to give the bubble boy their buying back so that we weren't on the bubble anymore. And I had a big stack. They all agreed. Sorry, like, I mean, I can't, man. I can't. It's not
That's
the
sick.
right move as a professional poker player. So yeah, all of my moves in poker, I'm gonna be ethical. I'm gonna be respectful at the table, but I'm also always going for blood. I'm also always going to play my best if I can, and I'm going to try to take every little bit of value I can as a poker player, because that's what makes a good poker player.
Definitely. Okay, one last hand. There's one last hand. I gotta ask you this. 215, 50K on ACR. It's I think it's a stone bubble, and I'm not bottom stack, but I might be like third in chips. I have 5 big blinds, and I find myself with pocket tens under the gun. 5 big blinds.
5 big blinds right on the money bubble.
Yeah.
And how many are in the bubble?
Let's say that it might be like 40 or 50 people make the money, and it's the direct bubble. I got 5 big blinds. There might be, there's a 2 big blind stack at another table, that kind of thing. Like there's a couple other very small stacks, but I got 5 under the gun with tens.
Oh man, I think because you are going to get called like at a really high frequency under the gun, I think that you're actually supposed to fold, man.
I did fold, so that's good.
I fucking hate that though. Even though you're supposed to, I probably don't. Just like
Jacks were getting shoved for sure.
Yeah. Actually, I think Ace King's folded though. Ace King.
Wow. Oh, I don't know if I could have done that.
Well, that's the thing though, is Ace King is actually like never that ahead. At least
Right,
tens can be really ahead, right?
Yeah.
Versus like they're better versus a random hand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure. 5 big blinds. It just seems like if you fold and there's 2 big blind stacks, like you can pretty much guarantee that you make the money. But when you do that, you're kind of giving up your shot at possibly
Rebuilding. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure. It's tough to say because there's no solvers that really just, like weigh. Well, yeah, there actually are. So like I actually think I should check that spot before I say it, but it feels like a fold to me.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I did good on that one then.
Yeah, well, I have these charts that Yargo gave me that show like risk premium in tournaments, and like right near the bubble in that kind of situation, you need so much more equity to get it in. So it seems like a fair fold.
For sure.